Hi, everybody. It's Becca again, coming here with another free 30-minute voice lesson. I'm going to give my setup a second because I can't tell if I'm here. All right, I think I'm actually here now. So, it's Becca Lundy again, coming at you with a free voice lesson. So I want to start similarly to how we've been starting throughout the course of these free lessons, which is to begin by synchronizing up the breath. And I think this is really important because often when we're speaking, when we're breathing normally during our day, we're not focusing too much on where the breath is coming in and how we can control it as we exhale. So just like we've been doing these last couple of weeks, I want to start today by 3 times in a row, taking a nice deep inhale into your belly and then hissing it out for as long as you can. I'm going to talk you through it again. My apologies if this feels a little repetitive to you. If you've been tuning in every week, you might be familiar with this technique, but it's still super useful to build a little bit of strength in those belly muscles, controlling the breath. So I'm adjusting the camera just so you can kind of see my ribs and my belly. So my low ribs are like here, my belly button is like here. So I usually like to place one hand on my low ribs, one hand on my belly. Take a deep inhale in. You can see how both my low ribs and my belly expanded there, and then hiss it out. So as we're hissing it out, we're really pressing from these low belly muscles. We're trying to keep the ribs expanded as much as we can. And most importantly, we're trying to avoid crunching in as our breath comes out. It can be really common for us to kind of round our shoulders forward, round our ribs in, because it almost feels like we're squeezing the last bit of toothpaste out of the tube. That's not quite how the lungs work. So we want to keep the ribs lifted and use the belly muscles to push the air out. So let's go ahead and do that 3 times in a row. I totally encourage you to put a hand on the belly, put a hand on the ribs, so you can really feel the expansion. Take a deep breath in. And go ahead and hiss it out. 2 more. And last one, big breath in. And hiss it out. Really nice. We're going to do one more breathing exercise, and I've talked about this one before as well. This is where we break the exhale up into multiple different hisses. Today I want to do 4. So I'll demo it once, again, kind of talking about some of the important features of this hiss and of the technique, and then I'll provide time for you to do it along with me. So let's take a deep inhale in. And then we're going to break that hiss up into 4 sections. So what's important about that is that each section of that hiss is started by me just pushing from those low belly muscles. I'm not using my tongue to add a T. And I'm also not using my throat to start and stop my air. Instead, I'm using the control of my belly to start and stop my air. So go ahead, let's do this 3 times, and we'll do it together. Take a deep inhale in, and then 4 even hisses. 2 more times, deep inhale in, and 4 even hisses. Last one, deep inhale in. And 4 even hisses. So the reason why it's so important for us to get used to starting and stopping these hisses using the belly muscles rather than the throat or the tongue is because we also want to build the habit of starting our sound using our breath rather than using our throat or using our mouths to chew on it. So it can be really common for us to start our sound by pressing from here, or by kind of building up the sound in our mouths and then opening into it. We want to use our breath to control all of it. And it should be super simple. When we do these breathing exercises, what we're trying to teach our body that we only need certain muscles in order to breathe. We really only need these low belly muscles. We don't need any involvement above the shoulders. And we want to try to teach ourselves also that we only need those muscles when we're trying to sing. We don't need big effort or big involvement really above the shoulders. So before we get into singing, I just want to do a couple little housekeeping notes. I want to remind you all that I am available for one-on-one video lessons. The format is super similar to this, but the advantage is that I can hear what you're doing and I can give you specific feedback and critiques, as well as choosing specific exercises to help you with the technique issues that you may be having. Rawk U is running a 25% off special during lockdown. So if you're interested in signing up for some lessons, that's a good opportunity to get a discounted first month. So reach out to Rawk U School of Music if you're interested in signing up for some individual lessons. All right, so I want to get started with a little bit of singing exercises. So this is one that we know. I'll introduce a few new ones a little later in the lesson, but I usually like to start with one that we know. If you want to reference back any of my old lessons from the last couple of weeks, you can visit our YouTube channel. There's a link in the comments. So I want to start today with a nice, easy, open ah exercise to help get us warmed up. We'll start nice and low and easy. We're just going to take our deep breath in. And we're going to go, ya. So my challenge to you here is two things. First of all, try to make sure there are no H's at all in your sound. So an example of interrupted breath, which would cause an H sound, would be something like, ya. We want to avoid that. We want to stay on the voice the whole time, just consistently producing really smooth sound. If it feels like it's slidey, that's totally fine. You might feel when you're sliding through pitches that it feels a little bit out of control. That's okay. It's a feeling that you'll get used to as you start to get used to the feeling of not working too hard in the throat. So we'll keep going. Ya. Your turn. And we'll keep coming higher. With each inhale, feel yourself breathing into your ah space. Feel your soft palate lifting. That's the place that lifts and opens when we take a big yawn. Feel your tongue relaxing and your throat opening. So each inhale gives us tons of space. And then we try to keep all of that space when we start our sound. Ya. Your turn. We're going to continue coming up. Keep inhaling into the space and then using all of that space when you're singing as well. Ya. Your turn. Coming up. Ya. Your turn. Let's keep coming up. Ya. Your turn. So you might notice as I'm singing, ya, the shape of my mouth is not changing. I'm not flexing in my neck at all. I take my inhale, find my ah shape, and then I stay in it, trying to change as little as possible. The more we change things and move our vowel chew on it, the more that we can kind of hide tension from ourselves in our face and in our neck. And we want to totally avoid that. We want to notice as soon as any tension comes up in the neck, we want to try to just let it go and relax it. So make sure your feet are planted on the floor. Make sure your knees are unlocked. You're in a nice, comfortable standing position, feeling total ease throughout your body. And we'll keep coming up. Yawn. Your turn. Continuing to come up. Yawn. Your turn. Coming up. Yawn. Your turn. Continuing up. Yawn. Your turn. So as I'm coming up higher, I'm stretching further back into that yawn space that I've created with my inhale. I'm feeling a big arch of the soft palate. I'm feeling the back wall of my throat expanding back. I'm feeling the tongue relaxing down and the throat relaxing open. So it's almost like I have a full circle of space in the back, lifting the soft palate, relaxing the back of the throat, relaxing the back of the tongue as well. We want to get all of those spaces. So as you come up, maybe feel a little yawn feeling. Sometimes I encourage my students to kind of imagine that they're still inhaling. That helps to keep the throat open. Sometimes I encourage my students to kind of trick themselves into thinking that they're going to sing a low note. And what that helps to do is it keeps us from lifting the larynx, which is what gives us sometimes that little choking feeling that we might get when we sing a note that feels too high. So I want to take that inhale, feeling all that low note space, feeling that ah roundness and singing right into it. Yawn. Your turn. Let's keep coming up. Yawn. Your turn. Continuing up, drop out if you need to. Yawn. Your turn. Let's come up for 3 more. Yawn. Big yawny space, almost more of an vowel than an ah sometimes, UH. Your turn. Let's keep coming up. Yawn. That was like pure up there. That helps us to release the throat. Your turn. We're going to do 1 more. If you don't have it, don't force it. Yawn. Your turn. Nice job. Give yourself a break, take a sip of water, anything that's going to help you relax. So we want to keep ourselves super hydrated. We want to keep our bodies nice and relaxed when we're getting ready to sing. So if you're planning on having a voice lesson in a specific day, I would say start hydrating as early as when you get up that morning. Pay a lot of attention to it. Hydrating is not one of those things that we can just like cram in at the last second. It has to be an all-day thing in order for your body to feel it and in order for it to do what it needs to do, which is to help us lubricate our vocal folds so that we have an easier time getting a smooth and comfortable sound. So we've talked just a little bit in this lesson series about tongue tension, and that can be a really complicated topic, I think, because most of us don't really think about our tongue that much. So tongue tension can be a huge problem for singers. It gets in the way of our sound. It gives us that tight feeling, and it makes it hard for us to sing high notes. One way that I think is super useful to check in with your tongue tension is to take the backs of your fingers and place them underneath your chin. So if you do that when you're speaking, like I'm doing right now, you'll be able to feel a ton happening in this smooth place underneath your chin. Those are these little auxiliary muscles that help to control the articulation of the tongue. Not necessarily the tongue itself, but all interconnected. So when we feel these muscles flexing and releasing, that's what we're feeling. When we're singing, we want to feel the spot underneath our chin really soft and relaxed. Now, I mentioned this last week and I'm going to say it again. I don't recommend a lot of self-massage underneath the chin because we have lymph nodes and salivary glands underneath there that can get kind of irritated if we over manipulate them. So I don't recommend getting in there and massaging it, but I do recommend using the backs of your fingers just to feel what's going on, not to manipulate at all. So maybe you have the backs of your fingers here, you're feeling it out. You're working to just get it nice and soft and relaxed, releasing the tongue. Sometimes I find it's easiest when I flatten the tongue in my mouth, letting the tip of my tongue rest behind my bottom teeth and the rest of my tongue just lay nice and flat. The biggest place that we have issue with tension in the tongue tends to be the back of the tongue close to the root of the tongue. So I'm going to teach us an exercise that I love to help us to release the tongue. We're going to start nice and low. We're going to use a G sound, ga, ga, ga. We're going to try not to jaw it at all. We're going to try not to chew on it by moving our jaw very much. We're just going to use the tongue to create it. So if you want, you can use the trick I've mentioned before, the Home Alone face, to hold your mouth open so you know that you're not jawing it. Feels a little silly, but it's super, super useful. So I'll demo. Ga, 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 ga. And what you can see happening here is I'm not moving my jaw. My tongue is what's doing the articulating. And that ga, that motion of pressing the tongue against the back of the throat and then releasing it, helps us to A, become aware of the back of the tongue, and B, helps us to know what it feels like to relax it. So we'll keep going. Ga, 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 ga. Your turn. Coming up. Ga, 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 ga. Your turn. Ga, 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 ga. Your turn. So don't worry if these are not the #1 most beautiful sounds you've ever made in your life. We're just building awareness of the tongue. We're teaching ourselves what it feels like to be able to control what the tongue is doing. So that's all we're working on here. We'll keep going. Ga, 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 ga. Your turn. Let's keep going. Inhale into your ah space. Ga, 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 ga. Your turn. Few more. Ga, 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 ga. Your turn. Continuing up. Ga, 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 ga. Your turn. I'm gonna do 5 more. Ga, 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 ga. Your turn. Four more. Ga, 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 ga. Your turn. Really use that relaxed tongue to help open into a nice, deep feeling ah space that'll really help save your top notes, make them a little easier. Let's keep going. 3 more. Go, 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 go. Your turn. Two more. Go, 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 go. Your turn. Last one. Go, 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 go. Your turn. Good. Give yourself a second, take a sip of water. Maybe if you don't have water with you, just like swallow a few times. The act of swallowing helps to bring everything together in the throat and also relax everything down. We love that. It helps us find neutral. So that's awesome. Another good tip for relaxing the base of the tongue that my voice teacher taught me and I use all the time. If I don't have time to do a bunch of these exercises, ga, 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 I will just say the word goggle over and over kind of quickly, and that'll help us find a little bit of neutral and a little bit of release down here in the base of the tongue. So I'll just take a nice breath in and go goggle, 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 goggle. Again, trying as much as we can not to jaw it, so we're not using the jaw to create these sounds, but really using the tongue, goggle, 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 because the G and the L are both relaxing motions for the tongue. We can find some nice relaxed positions there. So I want to do a couple more little exercises before we close out today. So we talked about our inhale, inhaling into our ah space, feeling how the throat opens, feeling how the soft palate lifts and the jaw drops, all of these relaxed spaces that we can create on our inhale. And I've mentioned a few times, trying to keep that relaxed space once we start singing, but I want to do an exercise that totally focuses on that. So nice and gentle, nice and easy. I want to do we want to have a nice, smooth onset. As a reminder, the onset is the moment where we start singing, where we start producing sound. And so there's kind of a few different areas of onset mistakes that people tend to make. On the one hand, on the 2/10 hand, we sometimes end up doing what's called a glottal stop in order to start our sound. And what that means is that the vocal folds are pressed together all the way. The air builds up behind them until it finally gets them moving. And we can hear kind of a percussive beginning to our sound. I'll demonstrate that one time. That would be something like, oh. I'll show you once more. Sometimes it's hard to hear. Oh, oh. So you can kind of hear how there's like a tense buildup before the start of the sound, as opposed to a smooth start, which is more like, oh. You don't hear that percussive and sudden start. So we want to watch out for that. And if you're not listening, but instead feeling what's going on in your throat, you'll feel that as a little press together and then like a big release right before your sound starts. We don't want to feel big dramatic things like that happening in the throat. The vocal folds are such teeny tiny muscles. We really want to let them be relaxed and not make them take on all of the force of our breath or anything like that. The other end of the spectrum with onset issues is when we have a breathy onset. And that one's a little more straightforward and easier to hear. That sounds like an H at the beginning of our sound. So that would be something like, and what's going on there is the folds are apart. The vocal folds are separated. The air rushes past them until finally they start to flutter together. And the reason that that can be a bummer is because it's drying to have the air rushing past the tense vocal folds without them doing anything. So we want to have, so the two ends of the spectrum, the glottal stop, which is the very tense onset, and the breathy onset, which is too separated. We want to be right in the middle with a smooth, even onset. So take your inhale, feel your ah space, feel everything right where it needs to be, and then just try to put your sound right into that space. I'll demo it one more time, and then I'll give you the opportunity to try it. Your turn. Will keep coming up. If you feel yourself tensing or anything, take a second, stop trying to sing, take a new inhale, find those open spaces and use them. Your turn. Let's keep coming up. Your turn. Let's continue coming up. Totally easy and breath driven. Your turn. So one thing that becomes key as we start coming into these high notes is we want to make sure we're not spreading our vowel and instead keeping it round, The vertical space that we find, is usable. That'll feel like more space for our voice. Horizontal space, not super usable. So we want to always look for space vertically. Sometimes that's a tough habit to build. Try to pay attention. You can look at yourself in the mirror. I find that's really helpful to know when the vowel is getting spread because you'll make a little smile face rather than round lips, round mouth. We'll keep going. Your turn. Coming up a little higher. Inhale into your space and then use it. Your turn. Couple more. Your turn. Let's do 3 more. Slidey, easy, yawny, and open. Your turn. Two more. Your turn. Big breath. Last one. Your turn. Give yourself a moment. Take a sip of water, anything that feels good for you right now. So, things that we are looking for that we focused on this week. Of course, as always, breath control. Getting ourselves able to really feel and access these belly muscles that press the breath out. Making sure we have round vowels. Making sure that our onset is smooth and is driven by the breath rather than being driven by the throat. So those are going to be our big focuses. If you're practicing, try and focus at home on taking your big inhale, feeling all the beautiful space you create with that big inhale, and then keeping as much of that space as you possibly can while you're singing, using your breath to do all the work for you so that your throat doesn't have to do it. So, once again, if you're interested in one-on-one lessons, our contact information is in the comments. You can find it. We are running a special for the duration of lockdown. And I would super love to meet some of you and work with you one-on-one. If you want to go back and look at any of our older videos, you're welcome to. There's links to them in the comments as well. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I will absolutely read them, and I'll try to include the answers to your questions in my next free voice lesson. So I hope you all have a great week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you all next Friday. Bye-bye.